Now, there are several horror films that were released in 2024 that were better than I expected them to be. Now, I kind of figured this one would probably be good because it stars Hugh Grant. I did hear some good stuff about it before purchasing it. Now, this release from A23, I had to buy this directly from their site. Now, I had intended to buy a 4K release, but I accidentally purchased a Blu-ray. Now, I take partial responsibility for this, but also I'm going to blame a little bit of it on their site, and it was a little deceiving. Not intentionally deceiving, but it was a little weird because I thought the way it read, it's like 4K and Blu-ray. I didn't realize I thought it would have a 4K and a Blu-ray in it like it should. Now, Arrow oftentimes will do this, where you get an Arrow release like this, for instance, and then you get it, and you know it's only going to be 4K or either Blu-ray, but they're kind of following Arrow's playbook, and they're going to release them separately, so in order to get both, you have to buy both of them. Unfortunately, I ended up with a Blu-ray, but it still looks quite nice for it being a Blu-ray. It has a 4K scan, it's just on Blu-ray instead of 4K. So, we're going to talk about this film. This is the first time I've watched it. I'm going to talk about the film. I'm going to show you this release, which A24 did nice work on this release, and we're going to talk about that, and I might talk a little bit more about how I accidentally bought the Blu-ray instead of a 4K. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. If you go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel. Now, Hugh Grant, he started out more of like a romantic lead. Even in his earlier films, like Four Weddings and a Funeral, this is a shout release. But in Four Weddings and a Funeral, I really liked his performance in this film. He's quite, I thought he was quite hilarious. And then he did a lot of other kind of romantic lead type of films, like Notting Hill and About a Boy. Recently, he's been doing more kind of Guy Ritchie films. Guy Ritchie seems to like him pretty good. He's cast him several times. He doesn't usually play a villain. Now, I have seen Hugh Grant play a villain a few times. For example, the Paddington 2 film, the bear film. And also, he kind of plays a villain in the Dungeons and Dragons films. Or he definitely plays a character who's not very trustworthy, ends up betraying the main character. In the film, which I think is a terrific film, Cloud Atlas, he plays a reincarnated version of the same character through different timelines. And every time he is an evil motherfucker. So here he does play, I think of all the times he played a villain, he's probably more evil in this than most of the other ones. Now, in Heretic, I don't think I've ever seen him play this type of character. Now, it is similar maybe to Cloud Atlas somewhat, but he is it's not quite there, because he hasn't really been in very many horror films either. The only other one I could think of is The Lair of the White Worm. Now, this is a really early film that he's in. He does play a fairly large character in the film, but this is one he's very young. Here he's much older now, and this is a very sophisticated script. Now, Heretic is about these two Mormon women who are going around, and they're going from the Church of Latter-day Saints, and they're going from one house to the next. They got a list of people that they're specifically been requested to go talk to, and they're going to places and they're talking about their religion, or the Mormon religion, the Latter-day Saints religion, and they're doing what they typically would do. Now, eventually, they end up at Hugh Grant's house, and and it's raining when they get there, and he tricks them into coming inside. The rules are they're not supposed to come inside unless there is a female present, and he says his wife's in there and he's going to go get her. They come in, and once they close the door, he has a kind of a trick lock on the door, which they don't know about immediately, and he's kind of trapped them inside. Hugh Grant plays a very manipulative person who as it goes on, you kind of question where exactly he's coming from. You also start to question where the filmmakers are coming from, as there is a kind of a religious tone to this. So you got two Mormon characters who come into this. The name of the film's Heretic, so I mean, obviously you got some kind of a religious thing going on there. But he's trying to talk to them about their religion. He starts throwing different types of ideas. When they go into, he brings them back into lures them back into a second room, and then at that point he takes out Monopoly boards and he starts trying to explain different versions of Monopoly. Like there's an original one that someone else, Parker Brothers, stole the idea from, but he's relating that sort of gameplay to the Bible, like with the original Bible, and then the newer Bible now, he compares that now to the new Monopoly. He compares the new Bible, the revised version, and the everybody likes, to the Monopoly game. And then he points out the other versions of Monopoly that they keep coming out with as different versions of the Bible. He's trying to make these two women doubt their religion. And again, once you get to this point, it's like, where is this coming from? Where are these filmmakers coming from exactly? Now, they do leave all of this open-ended eventually. So I don't think the filmmakers really wanted to pick a side on religion. I think they kind of wanted to show you different thoughts about how religion is manipulative. Now, I think this is thought-provoking. I just wanted, as I got into it, I actually had to kind of pause it about halfway through and do a little bit more research on where it was coming from. I didn't want to know what was going to happen later on. I just didn't know if they were trying to push some kind of agenda or whatnot, which I don't think the filmmakers are. I think they were trying to tell a horror story, and the way it's written, it's almost written like a stage play in a way. There's a lot of dialogue, and it's in kind of one location for the most part. You have some scenes that take place before they get to the house, but most of it takes place inside of this house, and it's kind of a labyrinth type of house as they go in further deeper into the house. There's more and more things in the house, so it's pretty cool, but it does kind of remind me a little bit of a stage play, a photographed stage play. But the actors are doing a terrific job. All three of the leads here. The two women are played by Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East. They both turn in terrific performances, and they both kind of represent different kind of thoughts on it. Where Sophie Thatcher plays Barnes, Sister Barnes, who is more of a hardcore believer, where Chloe East plays Sister Paxton. Seems like she's still kind of on the fence a little bit, maybe not completely in line with the ideology quite yet. So the directors, there's two of them, and both these guys also wrote the film and I think helped with producing it. Scott Beck and Bryan Woods. Now these guys kind of work as a team, and they have on several other writing projects and some films. Like, for instance, they wrote A Quiet Place, the first one, and The Boogeyman, the recent 2023 Boogeyman based on the Stephen King story. They wrote both of those. They didn't direct them, but they did direct two other films, one called Haunt and one called 65, that both of those seem to have done pretty good. Now this one, again, I don't know what exactly their ideology is, but I do like the way they do seem to have done their research on the Mormon aspect. I'm not Mormon myself, and I've always thought it was the idea of Mormon being a little strict and some oddball stuff that they have to do. But both of the actresses cast in the main roles here were previously Mormons. They were brought up with the Mormon faith. Both of them have kind of gotten away from it, though they probably still retain some of its values. But they both have a lot of experience, and they understand it. So the directors did a good job of casting these two characters, these two actresses in these parts, since they were so familiar with the Mormon religion. Now, that's another thing. Once it gets into the part where they're actively almost debating in a way, even though they know that the stakes are very high. He's locked them in the house. They can't get out. They're very scared, both of them. But they're basically in a debate of religion. And so you have Hugh Grant's heretic character, and then you're like, okay, well, who's going to defend, as a filmmaking or a writing standpoint, who's going to defend religion? And then you have these other two actresses playing characters who kind of step up to it in many ways. Eventually, they get into the part of a basement. Like he has a basement. He has two doors, and he's like, one's for belief, and the other one's for faith. And it's like, choose one of the doors. He makes them choose, and then they have to choose. And once they get down in the basement, then things get really dark, and they progressively get darker as the film goes on. Now throughout, there's a lot of tension. This is a very gripping film, and it eventually gets somewhat violent near the end. I don't think I'm going to discuss the whole end of it, but there's also another character who is their elder working at the church who finds out they haven't returned. It's played by Topher Grace from that 70s show. And he doesn't have a very big part, but he starts to look for him, and he shows up at the house eventually and has a little bit of back and forth with Hugh Grant at the door, but his character isn't in there a lot. Now, the film does have an open ending, I can tell you that, but I think it's quite brilliant the way that it ends. And it kind of leaves it open to interpretation what exactly has happened to the characters. Now, there's also a few shots in the film that are very abstract. Like you see, like he has this little house that he's made. It's a duplicate of the house, like a dollhouse version of his house. At one point, one of the characters is coming up the stairs, and it cuts to the dollhouse, and there's another version of her coming up the stairs in the dollhouse, and then she opens the door in the same shot, and then the girl walks into the room. So I'm not exactly sure what that means. I don't know if there's something more supernatural going on here than what you see on screen, or if it's just more of a psychological thing, or just from the trauma that the characters go through, or what. But there's some very interesting shots, especially near the end, that raise some questions about whether somebody is dead or not dead, or what happened. So let's take a look at this disc. Again, this is a Blu-ray disc, but I think the 4K has the same exact physical like case and stuff like that. It is a paper case. The design on this is very interesting. Here's the design of the house here. The way that the case is colored, like this brown color, kind of looks like the inside of the house. It kind of looks like a house from the 60s or 70s. So this is a very nice looking release. I think A23 did a good job on the physical aspect of this. I'm not real happy with their website, but I'm happy about ending up with the Blu-ray when I wanted the 4K. But and really, I'm going to talk about the transfer in just a minute. On the inside, you have the two women, Barnes and Paxton. They're talking to Mr. Reed, played by Hugh Grant, and this is the inside of the first room of his house that they go into. On the reverse side of it, you have the disc, plus you have... Now this is the next room in the house they go into, the one where he has the Monopoly boards. Here's the disc, unfortunately just a Blu-ray disc. Here you have both women and the doors to the basement on either side. Now inside of this there are some cards we're going to take a look at. Here's a spoiler card. You have Barnes with her neck slit, and these are all spoilers. Here's one of the prophet women that he has in a cage. Here's another one, like a dead one on the floor, which it looks a lot better in the film than these cards do. The quality of these cards, like the lighting and it looks like the black levels aren't quite there. Now this is when Paxton and Barnes are in the basement and they look under the door, and when the character played by Topher Grace comes to the door, and Hugh Grant's character, Mr. Reed, has to go talk to him. Here they are in the basement again, and here is a random shot of Taco Bell and Taco Bell sauces. I assume that this was craft service for the film. Now, interesting, on the back of this, it looks like you can put these together and put together like a type of a map or something like that. It's the same kind of type of map that's around here. It looks like you can put this together if you put all these cards together. It's kind of a cool thing. So let's go ahead and rate the film. I'm going to rate this film a 4-star rating. I really enjoyed the film, but I do have some warnings about it. I will say that you may not like this film if you don't like films that have a lot of dialogue, and they're not very... It does have effects later on, but they're not... It's more dialogue driven, like a play, but the performances are brilliant by all three actors, and they turn in... I don't even want to single out one of them is better than the others. I think all three of them do such a wonderful job, and their characters all have they have a lot of dimension to each of the characters. But really, Hugh Grant here, I guess, kind of cast against type, even though he has been playing villains more often than not. But I've never seen him in a performance quite like this before, and I highly recommend it for those reasons. Now, the questioning of the religion and things of that nature might make some people uncomfortable, especially as the film gets more into the middle part of it. Some of the conversations that they have may make people feel uncomfortable. The ending may frustrate people with it being open. I personally think it's brilliant, but they did such a terrific work with this. And some people may not like it that it's all in one location and you've only got a few characters, but it's very great character-driven drama with some horror aspects. As far as A23, I'm like frustrated that I ended up with the Blu-ray, though. Again, the transfer looks pretty good. Now, even on the people's faces, there's a pretty good bit of close-ups. I would think in the 4K you probably see a little bit more detail, but all of this looks really terrific anyway. I would think you would have a little bit of an uptick, but it would have been nice A23 to include both the 4K and the Blu-ray in this pack instead of selling them separately. But as far as I do like what they've done with this packaging, so I'm going to give them a 4, even though they really do need to put both of those together. And the problem is on the website, I didn't even realize there was 2 options. And if there are 2 options, shouldn't the 4K option be the first option? All right, I'm going to stop complaining about that. But I'm a little frustrated because I was I really wanted the 4K, but here we are. It looks good in Blu-ray as well. If you haven't done so already, if you go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm Dave Watkins. Thanks for watching.